Greetings, Connor McLean here. This is my news verification for JTC 326. And as we've seen throughout the coronavirus pandemic, it has greatly altered our everyday life, whether that be work, school, travel, the way we go shopping, and everything in between, even social interaction. The coronavirus has impacted our life, and we've had to learn how to adapt to it and live in different ways. Another way that the coronavirus has impacted our everyday life, and something that it highlights, is verification of news and information. So the coronavirus changes so much on a day-to-day basis. It may be hard or it may be overwhelming to keep in touch or keep up to date with the information, as cases, number of deaths, number of hospitalizations, they fluctuate every day. So it may seem a little overwhelming to try to keep up with that. So for this project, I found a news article from the German publication, the Local DE, so Local Deutschland, and they are a news organization that publishes articles in English for up-to-date news in Germany. So this article is titled, "Germany reports more than 11,200 coronavirus cases in 24 hours." And this is a screenshot from the headline and the picture. So let's start with what they got right. So this article referenced information from the Robert Koch Institute, and that's not a typo here, that's how institute is spelled in German. So they referenced the Robert Koch Institute, and just to start, from the Robert Koch Institute website, the Robert Koch Institute is a federal institute within the portfolio of the Federal Ministry of Health. So they are a federally funded part of the government under the Ministry of Health. And since the coronavirus has started, they've taken the lead on capturing information, making sure everything's up to date on a day-to-day basis, and just trying to get a grasp on the growth and the numbers of the coronavirus, similar to how Johns Hopkins University started once the coronavirus pandemic started. And so they reported that the totals have been increasing as the coronavirus starts to pick back up again in Europe. And I checked these numbers on the Robert Koch Institute, and they were all up to date. However, the Robert Koch Institute did have a system failure on October 27th, so I cross-checked it with Johns Hopkins University. And obviously, updated on October 24th, the numbers were higher. But it reflects the growth that's been going on. Another thing that they got right was, as the coronavirus is picking up here again in Germany in specific, each Bundesland, so Germany has 16 Bundesländer, which are like states. So the United States has 50, Germany has 16. Each state has been taking new restrictions. They're all pretty similar, but they cap the number based on the population per 100,000 in an area. If 50 new infections start in that area, then new restrictions will come to place, such as the limit of how many people you're allowed to be with in public, how many different households can meet up, and things like that. And they got this right because they pulled this information directly from each Bundesland. So here, the right picture is the hyperlinks that they sourced from each health department from each Bundesland. So it would be, for example, it would be like pulling each department, state department of health, so the Colorado Department of Health, things like that. One thing that they did find that was wrong, so here I pointed to it and then underlined it in red. The article reads, "The number of confirmed cases is higher than the peak of the first wave in March and April, when around 6,000 daily infections were registered." So I looked that up just to double check, make sure everything was smooth. And here is an example from the Johns Hopkins University. I took a screenshot just to show that it is their website, and then I shrunk it down and zoomed into Germany and specifically. And so I was looking at the first wave, they said that it's higher, which we can see here. It's higher than the first initial wave. But I went to the peak of the first wave, and the total right here between March and May, so April, March area, the total was 6,933. That was the peak, the most cases on one single day in that time frame. And so going back to the article saying around 6,000, with this number being less than 100 cases away from 7,000, I think that should be updated to reflect that. May not seem like that big of a deal, but 1,000 cases, that is a big difference between 6 and 7,000 when this number is actually closer to 6,000. But overall, this article did a really good job of reflecting the Robert Koch Institute, whose information does match up with Johns Hopkins University. And the article, as I said, did a good job of reflecting the new regulations that each Bundesland is going to be implementing as the coronavirus starts to surge again in Europe. Thanks.